today's episode of Take a Seat is all about culture and the vital role it plays in shaping not just our communities but our local economy. Joining us to explore this is Anna Day from Leisure and Culture Dundee. Anna is Head of Cultural Services and Libraries at Leisure and Culture Dundee, where she plays a key role in supporting and developing cultural services across the city, from libraries and heritage to arts and creative programmes. Anna is no stranger to the cultural sector, having previously worked at Perth and Kinross Council, University of Dundee and UNESCO. With Dundee widely recognised as a leading cultural and creative city, culture continues to play a major part in attracting visitors, supporting jobs and creating opportunities for people locally. In today's conversation, we'll explore the impact of culture on Dundee's economy, why it matters now more than ever, and how organisations like Leisure and Culture Dundee are helping shape the city's future. So, Anna, take a seat. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, obviously, in that introduction, we've been talking about how important culture is. And I guess, from the Chamber's perspective, we're always looking at, well, how does that kind of play to the local economy? And it's a huge impact. So, yeah, kind of tell us a wee bit more about that.
So obviously that impact has grown across the city over the last few years. And we've had 1.4 million visitors, I think in 2024, tourism visits. And that's a huge growth, over 75% growth in 10 years. So it is a really big sector now, and it's growing, and it affects the whole of the city centre. We all know the city centre has got its issues, but the cultural part is really booming. And you can see that with the DCA, the V&A, and obviously the venues that we run at Leisure and Culture Dundee, the Caird Hall, McManus. It's part of the lifeblood of the city, so it's there for the people of the city, but more and more it is a driver for people coming and visiting us as well. So it's one of the top 5 reasons that people come to Dundee is to experience that cultural sector, to go and visit our museums and our galleries and all the things that we offer.
Culture means so many different things to so many different people, though, doesn't it? And I've heard people talking about culture might be about that kind of football experience you go to, so it might be sports. It's definitely about some of the attractions you've talked about. And I think we've also seen some of the recent work in the city where, Broughty Castle's getting a bit of regeneration because the community have been involved in there, and the same with the observatory. So your role kind of encompasses an awful lot of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I don't have the sports sector, but I think you're right. I think, when we talk about tourism and culture, we forget about sometimes the Olympia, for example, which is a huge driver of visits to the city. And culture does mean different things to different people. 80% of the population of Dundee say that they are engaged in culture in some way, but that can mean so many different things. So I think from my perspective, when I'm looking at it from a work point of view, rather than from my personal point of view, then it's definitely about the museums and the galleries and the V&A, the DCA. But we never forget about those connections with the football teams, for example. So within the libraries, we work with the football clubs, and we work with some of them about reminiscence work and things as well. So there is that huge crossover amongst the different things in the city. And I think we do try, because we are a small city, to include everyone when we are talking about what brings people here and how we can capitalize on that. And for example, we were talking at work recently about the Dundee Stars and them coming to the ice rink. And when there's teams from other places, there was a team from Sheffield came and played, and you could see the hotels were full, the restaurants were full, because people were going up to the ice rink. But Sheffield, it turns out, is not close enough to come just for the day. So those people, they were coming and they were staying overnight, and they were engaging in the city in that way as well. So it is easy to just think about my bits of the business, but we do try and engage across the whole picture as well.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about culture and how that does support local businesses, we've talked already about city centre football, but should we talk a bit about job creation and how that fits into the sector?
So there are almost 3,000 people working in the creative sector and cultural institutions in the city, and that's about 4% of jobs in Dundee. So it's there with some of the bigger industries. It's incredibly important. We've got 255-ish cultural businesses. A lot of those are micro businesses. So there are some of the bigger organisations like DC Thompson's, of course, but a lot of those are micro businesses that are supporting each other that are really the lifeblood of the creative sector. People working in creative industries who are weavers, who are knitters. We've got the knit shop, which is an incredible part of our creative industry in the
Mhm.
city, through to printmakers, and it's such a vibrant place to be. And that is something that I think, as a tourism industry, we need to be engaging with those creatives and making sure that where they want to be part of that tourism offer, where they want to be doing workshops or want to be presenting their work, how do we make that happen? So in McManus shop, for example, we're looking at ways that we can bring more Dundee creative work into the shop so that people are coming in and being able to buy it, take it
Mhm.
home when they're giving people more avenues for sales.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, one of the events that we do every year is with the degree show at DJ CAD, and I never fail to think, I hope some of our guests, when we take our business event in, are actually not only just making connections with the students, but actually thinking about, well, are there some pieces here that, we can take, as does the business needs, has it got space on the wall and it's needing a bit of art? Or, I mean, I know I've bought jewellery, and it's really quite inspiring, isn't it? But those young people do need an outlet for their creative passion, don't they? So yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, McManus, the shop itself, there's always something really interesting and quirky. I love the shop, so it's always worth a visit, not just for a coffee, because you get decent coffee, and a nice look around the galleries. And you've got a pretty special exhibition on, but you were talking to me earlier about some of your new things that are kind of coming to McManus. Do you want to maybe say a wee bit about that?
So we are really refocusing. So Leisure and Culture Dundee, there's not been anyone in my role for about 3 years before I came into post. I've been in post, I keep saying 18 months, but I think it is now almost 2 years. Um, so it has been, we've had to do readjustment. We have really had to stop looking inward and start looking outward, because for a long time it was post COVID, it was surviving.
Mm-hmm.
So we are now, I think, in a really good place. We're looking in the winter months, in particular in McManus, about how we shore up our Dundee audience. How do we tell our stories? Everything we're doing in Leisure and Culture Dundee has a new tagline of "Celebrate Our City." So celebrate the people and the stories and the talent that's from here. And with McManus, that means in those winter months that we are going to tell those stories so that we have that real sense of place. And then in the summer months, be much more outward looking. So the show that is coming up, the show that's on at the moment, the Curtain Call show, is a real celebration of the people who come from Dundee, who've made their way in the world of costume design. And then our next show is going to be called, we think, Dundee Night, and it's going to be a celebration of the night out in Dundee
Oh yeah.
over the last 100 years. So taking you from music halls to cinema. We used to be a city that had the most cinemas per head of population in the whole of the UK, through to the heyday of the Caird Hall, through to what's happening now with a bit of politics thrown in. We had some amazing political speakers over the years. So all of that in one exhibition and really celebrating a good Dundee night out. So we're really excited about that. And that's coming up in late November. And then going into next year, we've got a really exciting show that we are working with the National Gallery in London. And it's a trail like the Irwilly Trail. The team will not enjoy me saying that, but it's a trail of the really amazing pieces that the National Gallery has. So Monets and Degas, and they're reproductions, but they're really high quality reproductions, and they'll be put in outdoor locations across the city centre so that people are getting to experience those amazing artworks. And it won't be the original things. We're not going to put a Degas up in front of the Caird Hall, but we might put a reproduction, a really beautiful reproduction, so that people can go and experience what those incredible artworks look like, and then connect them back to our works that we own in McManus. So I think that's going to be a great show for people, and hopefully will be a driver to footfall in the city centre as well.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that.
Oh, that sounds great. A real experience, which is
Yeah.
part of the thing people are looking for. And it brings people back into the city. If they've not come for a while, it'll give them a reason to come back. What about challenges? I mean, obviously, the sector and culture in general has kind of really seen some amazing things going on. But, it's not without its challenges, I don't suppose.
It's definitely not without its challenges. And I think that, as with everyone across Scotland, budget is really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Dundee City Council are having budget challenges, and we have budget challenges. Um, and we are having to find new ways to overcome those. So for us, that's about income driving. It's about looking at our services and understanding how we don't want to cut. So we
Mm-hmm.
are, we feel very strongly that as much as we possibly can within the budget that we have, we don't want to cut. I mean, that isn't a decision for us. In the end of the day, it's up for Dundee City Council. But what I want to look at is instead how we can deliver more income. So, I mean, the Caird Hall is a great example of that. The Caird Hall has been a really incredible part of Dundee's history, but it needs to change to meet modern needs. So that means that we've had to take a really hard look at some of the content that we've had. We had a really high number of tribute acts coming through the Caird Hall, and we've had to look and go, is that what people want? The audience figures for those were dropping, which meant that we weren't getting the income that we used to get from them. So we've made some tough decisions about that, but what that's meant is that there's space for new products start coming through. So hopefully people will be starting to look at the programme for the Caird Hall and seeing Louis Theroux, diversity we're on this week.
Mm-hmm.
We've got really great stuff starting to come through. But that was a risk. We had to take that risk of cutting some of the old favourites that have been coming for
Mm-hmm.
year on year, but people just weren't coming in the same numbers anymore. And making space for that new product. But we've got a great new team in at Caird Hall. We are looking at the bar offer. We're looking at whether we can reintroduce some food and have a pre-theatre. So those challenges are there, but we are trying to meet them head on and really make leisure and culture and our side of the business, all of the business fit for the future.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because I think the city's got different offers as well. So where something might not naturally come to you anymore, there are other places. Whitehall Theatre does some great shows,
Yeah.
but actually there might be other venues that are maybe a more natural fit for some of the things that gives you space then to do more of what you feel is kind of part and parcel. Which leads me to kind of talking about the future. So what does the future look like then for Leisure and Culture Dundee? What's the hope for the next sort of if it's 5 to 10 years, if we can look that far ahead, I guess.
I hope so. Yeah. The next 5 to 10 years, there are definitely going to be challenges along the
Mm-hmm.
way. The budgets are tight and they're just going to get tighter. But I think we've shown that we can work with the population of Dundee in particular to turn some of those things around. So Mills Observatory, which when I came into post was up for closure, but by the power of Dundee people,
Mm-hmm.
together with working with places like Dundee Culture and local illustrators, we really worked hard on the marketing around Mills, for example, and that meant that we had a record year last year. This year, I'm not going to shy away, was more challenging. Anyone who was in Dundee over the past few months knows that it rained and it rained and it rained. And for an
Yeah.
outdoor
Mm-hmm.
venue, that's been really challenging. But what it's meant is that we need to look then at our offer. If that's how winters are going to be going forward, potentially, we need to look and see, well, what is that building going to have that means that people are going to get out their house even on a rainy night and come and see something amazing in that
Mm-hmm.
space. It's such a brilliant venue. So we do have challenges, but for me, success would be, being more sustainable, in a financial sense around places like Mills, around Broughty Ferry Castle. We just got another 3 years of funding from a mixture of funders from Dundee City Council and from Northwood, which is amazing to be able to, have a longer term look at what Broughty Ferry Council can
Mm-hmm.
do. And that means we can go to national funders and start to look at the interior. How do we tell the stories of Broughty Ferry, of the Castle of Dundee within that museum? And how can we use that in a more commercial sense? What can we do within Mills? What can we do within Broughty Ferry Castle, within McManus, that's actually income driving? And that's about tourism. So we've just launched our first suite of tourism projects, proposals up at McManus. So we've got a new modern afternoon tea. We have got workshops that we're working with UNESCO State of Design and bringing local designers and offering those. We haven't done that before. We are free to view museum, and we will stay a free to view museum, but that means we have to be clever about what we are doing to build that commercial offer. So that has been one of our big challenges, and I think again that's something that we can start to do in our other venues as well.
Yeah, and we shouldn't really let that point go past without a bit of a shout out to the business community. So we've got a wide range of people that are looking at our podcast, and I know that you talked about Mills Observatory and even Broughty Ferry traders in Broughty Ferry thinking about the castle. So the private sector can really step in and support, can't they?
It's been brilliant, I have to say. The Mills, so I did not have a huge amount of space knowledge before I came into this role, but one of the things that I've been learning about is the amount of space related businesses that we have in Dundee. And one of the things that we wanted to do within Mills was really acknowledge those businesses, particularly Star Dundee, who are sponsoring us with hard cash, which is just phenomenal. And it's that was the thing that really gave us the confidence then to go out to the trusts and foundations who also supported. So what we've done around you walk up the stairs now in Mills is acknowledge those businesses and how the space industry is really important to the city, not just in Mills, but in modern times, talking about Gore, talking about Star Dundee, Bryce Ascension, those brilliant businesses that make Mills work, because what we want to be doing is inspiring that next generation of people who want to go and work in these incredible businesses that we do have. So we've done that in a really pointed way so that it does give that direct link between education and future outcomes. So and with Broughty Ferry Castle, the traders have been great. They've really thrown themselves into understanding what leisure and culture can do in terms of the core business, of opening the castle, of staffing it, of making it come alive. And they've really worked very hard around our team and with our team to start animating that. So, and also the local businesses, the markets that are coming in. The Barket we had a couple of Sundays ago, which was absolutely mobbed. We did think the good people of Broughty Ferry, with their many dogs, would enjoy a Barket, which, in case you haven't been to one, is a market with dog things, dog collars, expensive dog treats. But it was really, really busy, and it was great to see. But also the new sauna down at Broughty Ferry. So there's those micro businesses coming in, and the traders have been brilliant and supportive and working out how we can use that site at Broughty Ferry Castle. It's a really challenging site because you think you've got this greenery outside, but actually it hides a whole series of tunnels, so you can't put anything too heavy on that ground. So it's been really challenging working out what we can and can't do. But my team at the castle have been brilliant at really making that site work as hard as it can. So I think we're in a really great place with that.
Love it. Well, there's an awful lot we could have talked about, and I'm already thinking about tunnels and whether Helen and Stuart from Dundee DD Tours have been trying to maybe do some things around the castle, but that's something for another day. So we have some key questions that we ask all our guests when they come on, and it puts you on the spot slightly, I think. But my first question is, what's the best or worst piece of advice you've ever actually followed?
So my dark past, I was actually a tabloid journalist in London. For quite a lot of my 20s, I worked at the Mirror, and Piers Morgan was my boss. So you can imagine how fun a time that was. It was a great fun time. But the piece of advice that Piers, and it was a very, very competitive industry to be in. And the piece of advice that was always told when you started was, do not show any weakness. And I think that's a terrible piece of advice. And as a manager and as a boss, I hope that, I am as open about my weaknesses and where the team are really strong in the ways that I'm not. And, where I can build knowledge and where I can learn from them, and where hopefully they feel open about sharing their weaknesses, so that we really have a strong team. If everyone's just trying to do everything and never learn and never show where there are the bits that they don't have that innate knowledge of, then that's not a strong team. So that was a terrible piece of advice that I did listen to for a long time, and I think it was only later when I had other people around me who did not show weaknesses, and I realised that it's not a healthy way to manage, and it's not a healthy way to build a team.
No, 100%. What about a completely useless skill that you're secretly proud of?
Well, so I don't. This is not a skill. My siblings and I have a understanding that we all have a secret skill, each of us, that none of us have tested because we're so confident that actually we're just going to be amazing at it, that we don't need to test it. It's just sitting there. So my secret skill that I've never tested, I believe in my heart that I'm going to be excellent at it if I ever do, is making things out of spun sugar. Genuinely, no, I've never tried it, but it just looks like something I'd be really good at.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people who make things out of spun sugar are really talented, and I'd be utterly rubbish. But in my head, that is my secret skill.
That feels like we need somebody to come forward and do a workshop at McManus, but then you would confront the fact that you're either good at it or not, and you're just good at it.
I just like to live with that inside me. That is, if all else fails, I can go and be some sort of spun sugar artist.
I love that. And what about one habit that's made the biggest difference to your work life?
That's a good one. I think probably just being really knowing where your priorities are. So that I have 21, I think at last count, different buildings.
Wow.
Different teams who have worked in silos in the past. So previously my role was 2 different roles, and so bringing people together. So really being able to prioritize and delegate. I'm not great at delegating, but it is something I'm having to become much better at, because otherwise you just don't get through the day with the different callings on your time. So being able to prioritize, I think the team would say it's a work in progress. And it's easy to go down a route of getting embroiled in the exciting stuff, whether that's the announcements of the next show at McManus, or whether it is about the book festival, which we're launching next week, rather than dealing with an HR issue. It's easy to do the exciting stuff, but actually knowing when you've got to prioritize that daily grind, that's a really key thing to do.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, I think we could have talked about lots of different things, but it's been really insightful to hear about the role that culture plays in Dundee, and I think we've scratched the surface a little bit on some of the things, so we maybe need to get you back. But yeah, it's been great to hear about culture, how that's shaping the city's identity, but it's definitely driving real economic impact and opportunity. So thank you very much for coming on. From attracting visitors and supporting jobs to creating inclusive opportunities for our communities, it's clear that culture is a vital part of Dundee's future. And with such strong collaboration across the sector, it's exciting to see how that will continue to grow in the years ahead. We'll be back next week with another episode of Take a Seat. Thanks for listening.